Hey class, today we're going to be talking about how to graph linear equations. And the equations we're going to be graphing are going to be in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is slope and b is my y-intercept. Now, as we cover, we're going to talk about method 1. There are two methods that we're going to cover in this video, but we're going to start with method 1. And method 1 is going to be graphing linear equations by using tables. Okay, so for us to graph a linear equation by using tables, we're going to start with step 1. We first just got to draw a chart. You can either be a table or a t-chart that we're used to. Step 2 says that we're going to pick 3 to 5 values for x. So when we draw a chart, we're going to list the 3 to 5 values on the side underneath our x column. And we're going to use most of the time 3 values. Okay, and those 3 values we're going to use the most are -2, 0, and 2. Okay, to start, unless it is a real life problem. And real life problems for us are word problems. And a lot of times in word problems, they give us the values that they want us to find. Now, if we have a fraction as slope, okay, we're going to use the positive and negative denominator and 0. That will help us deal with fractions a little bit easier when we solve these problems. Step 3, we're going to substitute each value for x and solve for y. Okay, step 3 is going to require a little bit of work because we got to plug in and solve to get the value of y that we need. And step 4, we're going to record the order pairs in the table that we've made right beside its x value. Okay, and then once we get all the values solved for, we're going to graph the points to draw the line that we're looking to draw. Okay, so now that we see what our 5 steps are, let's move to our first example. Alright, so let's look at this example. It says graph the line of the equation y equals -2x plus 3. Step 1 says we got to make a table. So let's draw a table. One side got our x values, the other side has our y values. And then step 2 says we got to pick 3 values, 3 to 5 values that we can use in order to help us find the y value. Alright, so the 3 values we're going to pick is +2, 0, and -2. Okay, so if we try to pick all the same values each time, being consistent, that should work. Okay, so step 3 says we got to solve for the values of y. Now, I told you that step 3 requires a lot of work because this is what you have to accomplish. Okay, so in order to accomplish this, we got to take y equals -2x plus 3, and we're going to replace this value here every time. Okay, so based off the values that we have in our chart from here. Okay, so this is what I mean. So for the first one, I'm going to keep the -2. Instead of putting x there, I'm going to replace that with my first value of x, which was a +2. And then I'm going to bring down my +3. So -2 times +2 is -4. And then I can bring down my +3. And then -4 plus 3 equals -1. Okay, so that's the first one. So for +2, the y value is -1. So we go to our next one. In our next set of values, I'm going to bring in my -2, put my parenthesis, and I'm going to replace the x this time with 0. Okay, and then bring down my +3. -2 times 0 is going to be 0. Okay, and then bring my +3 down. And then 0 plus 3 is 3. So for my y value for 0 is +3. Then the last one, what we have is -2 times -2. Okay, then +3. -2 times -2 is a +4. Bring my 3 down. Then 4 plus 3 makes 7. So for my last value, the y value is 7. Okay, so for -2, the value is 7. Now, after we get and fill in our chart, the last step says we have to graph the line. So when I graph this line, I'm actually graphing order pairs. So the first order pair that I'm going to graph is +2, -1. So I go to my graph, I go to +2, -1, put a dot. Then from there, I go to 0, +3, put a dot. And then my last one says I got to graph -2, 7. And I put my dot. Once I got all my dots graphed, I connect them with the line, with a better line than that. And that is my graphed line for that equation. Okay? So that's that example. Alright, so in this example, we're going to graph the line of the equation y equals 6/5 x plus 1. So we're going to go ahead and make our table of values. And for us, to make it easier on us, we're going to use the denominator as 2 of the values that we're going to pick out of the 3. And 0 is the main one that we're going to try to keep, and the denominator is 5. And we're going to do the opposite of positive 5, which is a negative 5. Alright, so these are the 3 values that we're going to use. We're going to plug them in and solve for the value of the missing y's so we can graph the points. So for the first one, we're going to take and do 6/5 times positive 5 plus 1. So 6/5 times 5 is going to give me 6, and then that's plus 1. So that's going to give me my first value for y as being 7. Okay, so the next one, same thing. We're going to take 6/5. We're going to times it this time to 0 plus 1. So 6/5 times 0 is 0 plus 1. That's going to give us our next value for y as being just 1. And then the last one, this time we're going to do 6/5 times negative 5. Okay, plus 1. So 6/5 times negative 5 is going to give me a negative 6 plus 1. And that's going to give me a value of negative 5 for that y. So we're going to fill in our chart. So for positive 5, it was 7. For 0, it was 1. And for negative 5, we got negative 5. Okay? So when we go to graph it, now that we have all 3 values filled in for x and y, let's graph our order pairs. So for this order pair, we should be at 5, positive 7. The next one we're going to have is going to be 0 and 1. And then the last order pair that we graph is negative 5, negative 5. Now once we get all that graphed, we'll connect our dots to graph our line. And that's how you graph the line for y equals 6/5 x plus 1 using the table. So now let's move on to method 2. So in method 2, we're going to be discussing how we can graph a line using the y-intercept and the slope. Okay, so there's some steps to this also. So step 1 says that we just got to identify the y-intercept. That's the b in the equation. Okay, and we're going to plot that point. So now the b do have an order pair where it starts with 0 and then the y-intercept is the number. Okay, so then step 2 is that we're going to use the slope, which is our m, to find the second point using rise over run. Now with the rise over run, if the point is a whole number, okay, we have to make it a fraction by putting 1 under it. So if it's already a fraction, it's good. But if it's a whole number that's not a fraction, we just got to take and put a 1 under it to make that to be a fraction. You can only graph slope if it's a fraction. Okay. So in step 3, we're going to connect those points, and then that will be our line. All right. So now let's look at our first example. We're going to graph the line of the equation y equals 2x plus 5. Now, in order for us to graph this line, we need 2 things. The first thing we need to do is find what our y-intercept is, which is our b. Okay. Now the y-intercept in this equation is a positive 5. Now we can take that positive 5 and change it to an order pair. That will help us graph it easier. So the order pair will always start with a 0, and then our y-intercept will be next because that's where it crosses your y-axis. So this order pair for our step 1 will be 0, 5. Now the second thing we need is our slope. And our slope is represented by the number that is in front of our x in the equation, which is a positive 2 this time. Okay, but by it being a whole number, we have to make it a fraction by putting 1 under it. Now, it has to be a fraction because we have to use rise over run. Okay, the rise over run will tell us what directions to go. So because it's a positive 2, we're going to go up 2 blocks and then to the right 1 block. Okay, so let's graph the line. So if I start at 0, 5, that's the first dot I make, step 1, 0, 5. Okay? Now from there, we're going to go up 2 blocks and over 1 block. And we're going to put another dot. Then from there, we're going to go up 2 blocks and over 1 block. We're going to do that until we run out of graph. And you see that I ran out of graph. By me running out of graph, now I can take and connect the dots that I have. And once I connect those dots, that is the graph line that we needed. Okay, so that completes that example. Okay, in this example, this will be our last example. We're going to graph the line of the equation y equals negative 1/3 x. Okay, so just like the last one, we're using method 2. The first thing we need to do, we need to find what is our y-intercept, what our b is going to equal. Now, in this equation, what we should notice that behind the x, we don't have anything. Okay, there's nothing here. Because there's nothing here, our y-intercept is automatically going to be known as 0. Okay, and we can change that to an order pair, and that order pair is going to be 0, 0. Okay, step 2 says we got to get our slope. So our slope is always going to be the number in front of our x value, and this time it is a negative 1/3. Now, same concept, rise, overrun from the first example is going to carry over. Now this time, the top number is a negative. Because the top number is a negative, I'm going to go down 1 block, and the bottom number is a positive, so I'm going to go to the right 3 blocks. Okay, so let's graph our first point. First point is always going to be step 1, which is our y-intercept. So we're going to put a dot on 0, 0. Now from there, we're going to take it and go down 1 block and over 3 blocks and put another dot. Okay, we're going to go down 1 block, over 3 blocks, and put a dot. Remember, we're going to do it until we actually run out of graph. So I'm going to go down 1 block, over 3 blocks, and put our dot. Now what you should see from here is that we ran out of graph. So since we ran out of graph, we're going to take and connect all our points. Once we connect all our points, we will have a graph of the line y equals negative 1/3 x. Okay, so that completes our examples. Next thing that you will see is that you have some that you have to complete. It is your turn.